In progress.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Tony McDowell. I'm the Executive Director of the Opioid Abatement Authority, and I'm going to be managing the technology for this virtual meeting. This is we're kicking off a Grants Committee meeting of the Opioid Abatement Authority, and in attendance with me here at the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center is the Chair of the Grants Committee, Dr. Sarah Melton, along with the Chairman of the Opioid Abatement Authority, Senator. I'm getting tongue-tied for some reason. Senator Todd Pillion, I apologize. We also have from the OAA staff, we have Cindy Newman, who's been with us now for just under a week, in new position of our Southwest Virginia Abatement Coordinator, and Jennifer Faison, who is the Executive Director of the Virginia Association of Community Services Boards. And so with that, we have some additional folks that are joining as panelists, and that includes Mr. Mike Tillum, who's a member of the OAA board and a member of this committee. And we also have from the OAA staff, Adam Rosatelli, Director of Finance, Charlie Linicum, Director of Operations, and James Schliessman, who is our General Counsel from the Office of the Attorney General. Right now, we don't have a quorum. We are expecting at least one other member of the Grants Committee to dial in. And so with the indulgence of the group, we will go ahead and proceed in an informational manner, and hopefully we can have a quorum by the end of this meeting in order to vote on a couple of items that are required. And so with that, Madam Chair, we'll turn the agenda over to you.
All right, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. We have not been able to establish the quorum, as Tony has said. Are there any guests with us that we haven't recognized? I think everyone has been recognized that's online.
Sharon Buckman has just joined us.
Hey, Sharon, thanks for being here.
And that means we have a quorum.
Yay.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. We'll go ahead and proceed to our second order of business, which is the approval of our minutes from the meeting on January 30th that were provided to us, and those are posted online. And I will accept a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thanks, Mike. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those minutes have been approved. Thank you. We will move on to number 3 on our agenda for Charlie to provide our update as his Director of Operations.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. All right. So we'll move right in. Director of Operations update. So just wanted to remind everybody of where we are generally on the current grants processes that are open right now. We have our applications for individual distribution to cities and counties, for cooperative partnerships involving multiple cities and their counties, for planning grants for individual cities and counties, and planning grants for the cooperative partnerships. The current application period for all of those closes on May 5th. So since the grants launched on January 19th, we've moved from constructing processes to trying to have a large focus on outreach, because we know this is obviously not only our first period, but as Tony has mentioned many times, this is not a space a lot of local governments are used to being in, trying to provide services of this manner. So the first thing we did, we launched our OAA news update, which I believe all of y'all are receiving. We're doing that, every week or two. We've done 4 updates between March 6th and April 3rd. The initial update went out to 547 subscribers. The most recent one on April 3rd went out to 701. And as of yesterday, we were up to 723. Every time we do an update, there is an uptick in subscribers. And we've only had maybe 3 people unsubscribe. So I think that's it's pretty good. It's great that we're continuing to able to grow our audience and not only put out information from us, but from other things that are happening in, the abatement, remediation, world, including like the most recent one, we were able to include some information that Mr. Tillum forwarded to us about an application process that the Virginia Association of Recovery Residences is currently running for like recovery supports in rural areas. So we hope to continue to grow the type of information we're able to communicate through there. So we've also done, and we'll be doing another virtual Q&A just about like the grants processes. This is kind of open for the cities and counties. Virginia Institute for Government continues to be a wonderful partner with us for these. They do a lot of the kind of outreach to getting people signed up. They have a very large list of local government people and related information. So we conducted one on March 8th, and this is literally just open for them to kind of ask us any questions they think about. I tend to kick it off with a couple of common questions we may have been receiving iteratively to kind of get those out of the way and get their thoughts flowing. And then they can kind of do stuff. And it was a pretty good and pretty robust session. And the recording of that session is also now available on our website. And we have another one coming up April 19th, which is about in like kind of the 2 weeks before the application process closes. We've also sent out a survey to all cities and counties. Tony sent it to all the city and county executives on March 21st. And then we send out another reminder in the OAA news update on April 3rd. The purpose of this survey is to kind of focus on and ask about their application status. Like, are you planning to apply for something in the current period? Are you going to wait till the next one? Like, what are you doing? And do you want assistance from us like in the current period? Or would you potentially like us to do some outreach like this summer before the next period opens? As of April 7th, we had 38 unique responses. Not all of them were complete, but at least they got through at least one or two questions. So a couple of highlights. In addition to the first three questions, kind of just collect information about the city or county and who the kind of contact person is. But 80% of the respondents say that they plan to submit some form of application in this current period, that the application period that ends. So that's not, now let's remember, that's not 80% of 133. That's 80% of 38, which is about 30 or so respondents. To add on to that, this is kind of the mix of applications they're looking at, and we see about almost 50% on the individual. It looks like our highest number is on the gold standard, which is wonderful to see. This line here is the planning grants for individual localities. This is the collaborative partnership applications, and then this last one at the bottom is the planning grants for cooperative projects. So it's kind of an interesting situation, but it does kind of match up to some of the conversations that we've had with localities. And then we asked how many of them that are planning to submit would like assistance, and we got almost 70% that want to. And so we have started conversations, and as of Friday, we have 22 localities that we're working with directly that are asking, whether it's been 1 or 2 conversations or 10 conversations and 25 emails, depending on their information they're looking for and their level of assistance. The assistance is ranging from all kinds of things, from reviewing, kind of things they're thinking about putting in their application, asking things about programs, technical things, budget supports, trying to figure out when they do and don't need a resolution. It's been very wide ranging. And some of these are for individuals, and some of these are groups that are working together for collaborative partnerships as well. So any questions on the outreach stuff? That's the end of my Director of Operations update.
Any questions for Charlie?
This is Tony. If I can just add one comment, is
Please.
that the outreach is just going to continue to accelerate. We are in the process right now of formulating what we're going to call the Abatement Academy, focused on local governments. And it's going to be a series of webinars on the second and fourth Thursdays of each month between now and the end of the calendar year, ranging across a number of topics. that include things like the key principles that have been pushed out by Johns Hopkins of using the opioid settlement funds to save lives, using data, focusing on evidence-based programs, and so forth. There's 5 program areas, and we're going to provide examples under each of those program areas. We're in the process right now of looking for speakers who can talk about best practices in those areas, and we'll make those available through partnership with the Virginia Institute for Government. And each will be recorded and then put onto our Abatement Academy website so that people can come back in their own leisure in order to watch those classes. We also have 2 workshops scheduled, one in September and one in October. These will be full day, one full day conferences. The first will be on September 13th right here in Abingdon, and the second one will be October 19th. I'll double check that for the minutes. It's going to be held on the campus at UVA, and we'll be looking for 2 additional locations for the end of the calendar year and the first part of 2024, all with the purpose of providing outreach to local governments to share examples from our toolkit on things they can be using their opioid abatement funds for.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
All right, Charlie, you ready to speak again on our state agency grants process?
Sure. So, whoops, jumping ahead too far. So, when Kara sent out the agenda, she also included kind of the draft write-up that we have for the state agency process. And so, as we have probably discussed in a few prior meetings, instead of using like a strict application process, we want to use a request for proposals process, by which we kind of lay out the types of things we're looking for. And instead of having to kind of line item every single thing and fill out a form, this gives the agencies a opportunity to kind of be creative and talk us through and kind of tell us a story about what they're going to do, because they most of them have more resources than a lot of the localities do, and they're used to designing programs in these areas as well. So the RFP itself contains a number of items, including statements of purpose, priorities, and scope, information as to what qualifies an entity as a state agency, the requirements that must be included in the proposal, some general and financial guidelines, how much funding is available for this cycle, the timeline, process for amendments and carryover from fiscal year to fiscal year, reporting requirements, evaluation criteria, what the evaluation process will look like, and then finally how to submit a proposal. So what are the priorities that we have enumerated? So we have quite a number here, but they all should sound fairly familiar to you based on all the things that we are talking about. But expand, facilitate, otherwise provide greater mobile treatment and crisis services, empower and support local governments and or community-based providers in opioid abatement efforts, reduce overdoses, expand and access effective treatments, including providing medications for opioid use disorder, MOUD, or some previously known as MAT, especially for criminal justice involved individuals, supports for people in recovery, improving information and data sharing related to the opioid crisis in Virginia, providing proactive outreach, screening, and healthcare connections, identify and address disparities in access to prevention, treatment, recovery supports for people in traditionally disadvantaged communities. And then the last one is kind of open. We know that there are agencies that have been in discussions about what they might present since well before we put this together, before we even launched the localities process. So as long as their proposals meet the requirements of the Code of Virginia and the Exhibit E, then we will obviously take that into consideration with all of the others. So what is required in the proposal? Well, they can only do one proposal per agency, but they may have multiple projects within that proposal. If they do, the projects must be prioritized and they must be endorsed by agency leadership. We don't want to get in the middle of a fight between 3 departments in an agency about who does and doesn't get funding. So we want to have one voice from the agency as a whole with what their priorities are. And we also have some guidance to how, if multiple agencies want to work together, kind of in whether they submit jointly submit a proposal, or one serves as kind of a subrecipient to another, then there's some guidance in there for them to do that as well. For each project, we will do, like the collaborative projects, we will do 1-year awards with up to 4 optional renewals. And after that period, they would need to kind of go back through the full RFP process again. Data-wise, we're looking for everything that is in our individual and cooperative project applications, such as like a narrative, the objectives, how is the need determined and how does it relate to abatement, targeted beneficiaries, who are their partner organizations, is it evidence-based and evidence-formed, and how much, if it's not 100% related to opioid treatment, how much is, and then, the budget, project timeline, and performance measures, all of that stuff is part of should be in the proposal from them. And we've additionally added about how does this project align with state and federal mandates or priorities? How is the project addressing equity issues in Virginia? And what is the geographic focus? Is it statewide or is it for a specific area? And if it's for a specific area, what is the reasoning by targeting that? Which obviously might be something like, particularly historically disadvantaged communities, which you could target across the state, but wouldn't necessarily be a statewide, same statewide as something that's available in, every locality. Or say every health department or CSB. So our evaluation criteria and process. So when we have the applications, what we're going to look at is, do they meet the eligibility to apply? Do they qualify as a state agency, basically? Is their proposal compliance with the requirements in the Code of Virginia and the settlement terms? How do they deal with achieving the priorities that are enumerated in the Code of Virginia? And that's, as a reminder, that's like collaborating with an existing program with a track record of success in treating, preventing, reducing opioid use disorder. That's a program that's treating, preventing, reducing opioid use disorder in communities with high incidence of opioid use disorder or death rate. Same thing in historically disadvantaged or economically disadvantaged communities. And also, does it include a monetary match from or on behalf? And then we're looking at how the equity of the results will be looked at across Virginia, because just like with our regionals and our planning grant things, we have to think, well, with our regional grants, we have to think about trying to show an equitable distribution of funds for these programs across the Commonwealth. And the process for review, we'll be looking at the completeness of the application and how it meets the criteria above. We'll conduct an evaluation meeting with each agency, which may potentially include a negotiation of scope, budget, priority, and that kind of thing, as we're trying to look at how much they are asking for and what their project is what their project contains as compared to other proposals that we've got. And then from those negotiations, we will provide recommendations to the grants committee for their review and approval. Timeline. So the RFP process, we plan to open on April 21st. The Secretary of Health and Human Resources has agreed to kind of be to help us launch the announcement, to make sure that it gets to the other secretariats in the Commonwealth, so they can forward it down to their agencies to make sure that we cast the widest net possible. We will also follow up with a OAA news update the same day to make sure that anyone on that way in getting the information that way has the information. Documents will be posted to our grants portal just the same as they have been for the other applications, and the completed proposals will be emailed to the OAA. So from there, oops, sorry, not what I was trying to do. After it opens, about 2 weeks later, we'll have a question and answer session on May 2nd, and then we'll have another one on June 6th, just allow them to kind of work through everything and ask us whatever they feel they need to help them understand the process. Then the RFP process closes on June 21st. Then between June 22nd and August 17th, we'll conduct our review and our negotiations with the submitting agencies. And then the August 18th Grants Committee is where we'll present our recommendations for y'all's review and approval. And then we plan to transmit the awards in October. And so like the performance period and fiscal period for these grants will be October to September, which is the same as the federal fiscal year. Subsequent cycles to this will be in April 1 to June 1 with a grant committee award coming in early August. And one of the reasons, well, there's multiple reasons we're looking at this cycle. One of which is basically we're kind of closing and opening cycles between the state agency grants and the local grants. As one closes, one opens. So we're not trying to kind of help us manage our own workload for the OAA staff. But additionally, for state agencies, August and September is usually the period that they are requesting funds through the administration to go into the governor's introduced budget through a process called decision packages. So what we wanted to be able, and sometimes they're trying to braid funds together, or they may have been instructed to like, hey, go see if you can get this funding out of the OAA before you come ask for state general funds from it. So we're trying to dovetail this process so that before that decision package process ends, they know whether they would get some, all, or no money from the OAA for the project, so they can include that information in their decision package so that it cuts down this kind of pushback. Because once something gets pushed out of a decision package process, then it's going to be another year before they can get to it. So we hope that's going to help streamline things for both OAA staff as well as for the state agencies. So other items related to the proposal, amendments to their proposal and carryover would be reviewed during the renewal process. So they'd have to submit it, for both of those items and tell us, why they need it, what they're going to do with it, and they both must be approved by the grants committee. Reporting will, for now, like our other grants, will be on an annual basis. Will include both financial and performance measures, and the detail for it would be kind of more maybe to be based more on the particular project, and will be laid out as we're kind of instead of just sending like an award letter, we'll have like a MOU with the memorandum of understanding between the OAA and the awarded agency, and that will have all the terms and conditions in it, as well as what we expect to see from them as far as performance and in reporting. And lastly, there's about $8 million available for award to state agencies during this cycle. Any questions on the state RFP process for state grants?
I have a question. Yeah. So how did we determine the 8 million as the number? Is there a formulation that we look at for that? Maybe I missed that somewhere.
Yes. So, excuse me, Charlie, the question was, how did we arrive at the budget of $8 million? And I think Adam is on the call with us. Adam's probably going to be the right guy to answer that question for us.
Yeah, I'm here, Tony. Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, that it was the budget amount, and it was again using that measured approach to provide kind of a level set annual amount, a reliable amount, right? So it's spreading out a lot of the front-loaded payments associated with Janssen and the distributors, and so that you're getting about $8 million in the first, second, third, and fourth and fifth years, rather than kind of having that more volatile up and down sort of pattern. If that makes sense and answers your question.
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair, second follow-up question.
Sure, go ahead.
So if we end up doing securitization, I'm assuming that number will change.
Where we stand right now with securitization is we, as the board, or as members of the committee recall, the board asked for the staff to engage a financial planning firm. We're doing that, and they'll be looking at securitization, but they'll be looking at the overall financial structure, the budgeting of these grants over the future years. And so all of that is up for discussion by the board, and ultimately could lead to a change in approach.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, if I may, just a couple of items to summarize this for everybody's clarification. These grants are going to be competitive because we have a fixed amount of money that's available. And so it's state agencies competing with each other for these funds. And, you know, we have a definition of what is an agency that's been provided to us by the Office of the Attorney General, and it could include organizations like universities. And so it's not just your traditional state agencies, but other state functions as well. And so this is both an opportunity and potentially a challenge for us as we work through these. The awards can be anywhere from 1 year to 5 year in nature. And if it's a multi-year award, then the agency would have to demonstrate that they've done a good job with their money in the year that's already been funded before they get the next year funded. And so you have to sort of sing for your supper each year in order to move forward. But we wanted for the agencies to be able to develop plans that could span more than 1 year.
Yeah, I just see that $8 million with universities applying is going to not be very much money. That would be my fear. And I would assume there's going to be, if universities are in that definition, there's going to be a host of applications that we're going to receive.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir,
Yeah.
Senator. So we've obviously had a lot of conversations about how we're going to review these. And I think that some of the criteria that Charlie showed you will help us winnow those applications down to the ones that the OAA is going to feel are the highest priority.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Jim Holland. That's exactly my question. I'm not sure 8 million will go that far when we look at all the potential bidders in this regard. And then what will be we'll need to think about the criteria and recommendations based on those we have received, given their multi-year awards as well, especially.
Thank you.
If I can make one more comment, Madam Chair, is that the board is well aware that of all the grants or funding opportunities the OAA will decide on, the slice that goes from the OAA to state agencies is the smallest slice of the pie, but the state is getting its own share of the settlement funds outside of the Opioid Abatement Authority. 15% of all settlement funds go directly to the state. And thanks to the legislation that our chairman carried in this last session, which has been signed into law, those funds can only be used for qualified abatement purposes. And the outcomes of how those funds are used are going to be reported back to the OAA so that we can track those data as well. And so to the point that the members of the committee have brought up, I think that we're going to continue to work to educate state agency representatives to the fact that there's really more money in the state budget for abatement than there is in the OAA budget for state agencies.
Yeah.
Great points. Any other questions for Charlie before I move on to ask for a motion for us to adopt the state agency grants process?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Great information. And our staff has recommended that we need to have a motion to adopt this process. So I'm happy to hear that motion if someone's.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Jim Holland.
Thanks, Jim. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Good.
I do vote.
Anybody opposed? Okay, all in favor. So we have that motion and it has been accepted unanimously. All right, now we get to something exciting. We actually get to review the grant that has been recommended for approval. And Charlie, you're up again.
Yes, you're gonna get tired of listening to me. All right, so next item, review and approval of recommended grant award. We have received our one application. We almost have a completed second application that is for a planning grant, but it is missing some data elements, so I will not say it is currently received yet. And of course, that's because the planning grants are competitive, they wouldn't be considered until after the period closes. But we have an individual distribution award for the County of Washington. a very well put together application. They are requesting the full amount that's available to them in fiscal year 23 of $115,970. Their application includes that includes their money for the gold standard that they have provided a resolution that they are going to comply with. And this is for operational support of the Mended Women's Lifestyle Center, which is an ASAM 3.1 low intensity residential program with evidence-based practices. This is going to be a women's focused treatment and recovery center, going to be based in Abingdon. It's going to ideally to serve the 13 counties and cities in Southwest Virginia, and it's going to be the only one for women within 150 miles. So it's definitely a strong need, and they are working with Fairview Housing, who has a center for men in Bristol that's been operating for a while. They also have a couple centers in Tennessee. They're a 501c3 that's been in operation since 1970, doing all kinds of work with people in need. So, there was a summary a little more of a summary on the program in what I sent out, Kara sent out the other day. And so I'll ask, are there any questions about this?
Charlie, it's Tony. Would you mind speaking to the committee just briefly about the larger effort that Washington County has attached to this with a potential cooperative partnership application?
Yes. So we will also be receiving a cooperative partnership application that Washington County will serve as a fiscal agent for to support this project, along with Bristol City and perhaps one or two other neighboring counties to Washington. They're still working through that process. That request is going to be for up to potentially 1.5 million to allow Fairview to purchase the facility to reduce their operational costs long term. That they are looking at that's the total amount needed to purchase, but they are looking at various ways that they can provide matches to that, monetary matches to that, to reduce the ask of the OAA. But they have they provided us an operational budget that shows how they're using other funds. Washington County has also put about $200,000 of its direct distribution money already into this project. There's also in Smith County gave all of their direct shares for fiscal year 22 into it. So there's a lot of and they have also gotten a lot of philanthropic money from nonprofits in the area, one of which even said they would give a boost to the program if Washington County applied for the gold standard. So there's been a lot of, Cindy could probably speak more detail about the project, because I believe she's familiar with it and maybe even was involved in some fundraising for it early on. But yes, we do. They are working on a regional cooperative project that will be to support this for purchasing the facility.
So Charlie,
Cindy,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry about that. A question that just to clarify, this program is not yet in operation. This is a women's center to complement the men's that doesn't exist yet. Right. Okay.
Correct. And, they are planning to open on April 13th.
Okay.
And knowing that this award is in place is kind of the last piece of the puzzle they needed to open the doors.
This is Jim.
Second question.
Wait.
Go ahead, Dr. Thompson, finish your thought, and then I'll go to Jim.
Okay, thank you. Second question, I was curious to hear about, the description of the use of funds, operational support. Did they give us any more detail on how our award would help them to operate? Was anything in specific to help them come up with the amount that they asked for?
So the amount that they asked for was the total amount available to Washington County for the fiscal year 23 through their individual distribution and their gold standard. They gave us a budget, like an operational budget, which I'd show you, but it might blur your eyes. I mean, they got it down to, you know, costs for insurance and personnel and, you know, supplies and all that type of stuff. And what the grant money right now is doing, both from OAA, from Washington County, from the philanthropic, because it's helped kind of filling. Right now, they're in a deficit as they start, until they get enough people in, because they're going to be billing Medicaid, to where they become sustainable, and they should become sustainable in about October or November. And what the grant money is doing is help kind of cover the net deficit. But they also have, Fairview also has a line of credit that they can use for that too. But they're anticipating by November, but probably sooner than that. That's kind of the conservative budget model.
One question, is this eligible for multi-year or is this only 1 year?
They only requested the 1 year. They could have requested their FY24 money as well, but I think the way the project is put together is, once they get open and they get enough people in, the project will be self-sustaining. So Washington County can use their future years of OAA dollars to support other projects. Same thing as if, the way I understand it, the regional application will be a one-time ask for the purchase of facility, and then they would not need that money, obviously, again in a second year. So.
Thank you.
Mike, go ahead.
Thanks. So I just wanted to share this. So I'm a partner in in 3, or I think we're going on 4, 3.1 low-level intensity residential programs in Richmond. And I know what it kind of took for us to get up and going as on the front end investment, and then we were sustainable. So what you're talking about is real and real true. And so this is a great way to help these people get that started. And then they're self-sustaining, and then we get an opportunity to help them get another one open, because they are a nonprofit, correct?
Yes, been in operation since 1970.
Yes, I love it.
Track record of success.
Nice. I get excited when I hear this. So this is wonderful. So thank you.
It is exciting. I'd like to hear from Cindy. Anything else she wants to share, since she knows the people involved in the project?
Yes, it really got started just out of a grassroots effort. A lot of great folks done this way, just saw the gap for the 3.1 facility, especially for women. So they just sort of started doing some grassroots fundraising, just some really great folks out of the Appalachian Substance Abuse Coalition. And then Linda Austin, executive director, they just sort of come across the facility, and it just happened to be for sale. So they got a lease on it just to kind of get going. Did some fundraising early on in September. We just did a open door where we had some great folks gather some musicians that played for free, and just at the door took donations, and they were able to get several $1,000s that way. So community is really on board. As far as the provider with Fairview Housing, they do have that proven track record. Bristol Lifestyle Recovery has been in operation for a few years. They've gone now to they're fully licensed by the Department of Behavioral Health, and now can take that license and be a provider for other facilities. So they have that proven track record. So, and just a lot of community support as well. And the need is definitely there for women in our area for that 3.1 level of care. It does not exist in our region.
Where exactly?
How many beds?
It's on Bradley.
Okay.
54, Mike.
54. Thank you.
And Tony, I toured this facility about a year ago, and I've toured the Bristol facility as well, and they do great things. So I'm certainly excited about it coming to Southwest Virginia.
The only problem with this application is that it's so great that it sets a high bar for everybody else to meet going forward.
That's a good problem to have for us, though, right?
Yep.
And it's this being our first grant, I think it's we feel like we're excited to recommend approval of this.
Yeah, this is Jim. I'm excited too. And that certainly would move a motion to recommend approval of this grant as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? No, okay. We have our first recommendation for funding. Yay.
Yeah.
Historic.
It is, for sure.
Yay. That's exciting. All right, let's see. We are nearing the end of our agenda. Are there any other issues that members guests would like to discuss before we adjourn in preparation for our listening session?
Madam Chair, never one to be quiet. I have a couple of things just to share with the committee.
Please, Tony, go ahead.
This committee is slated to meet again on June 9th. Back here in Abingdon, that needs to be an in-person meeting. And the reason for that is because the state law says we can't have two all virtual meetings back to back. And this one technically is an all virtual meeting. When this committee meets on June 9th, we expect to have dozens of applications ready for recommended approval to the board. And so it's going to be probably, we've slated 2 hours for this meeting because you've seen how many questions can come up with just one application. And since we don't know how many applications we'll have, I think we could have
I'm
more than
estimating that. I'm thinking about 50 easily.
and that would be both regional and individual
Mhm.
applications. So we're going to have a lot of work to do, but I think it's going to be it's going to be exciting to see all of this come together with that scale. I'll also mention, so I guess my point there is please, I know that this committee and members of the board have been very generous with their time, but we really encourage if there's any way that you can attend that June 9th meeting to put that in the calendar. I believe that's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that right, Charlie? 3 to 5?
Yes, 3 to 5. Yep. And if I make one quick point, Mike, before you jump in, the format that I kind of sent that summary in and that was sent out with the agenda and the other notes is kind of what we plan to send you all ahead of time so that you can see what they are. And then also look kind of not only to have a chance to have a high level review, but give you the chance to kind of look through and see if you might have any potential conflicts of interest with any of the programs that might cause you need to recuse yourself from a vote on a particular one. And we'll do our best to get that out a few days ahead of time. And if you know there's something you might need to recuse, we can make sure we pull it out of any blocks so that it can be dealt with individually.
Thanks, Charlie. So the only question I had is, how many days is my mini vacation going to be in Abington? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm coming down there for a few days to enjoy it.
I would,
how long did it take to go through 50 applications?
Mike, I would welcome you to Abingdon as long as you want to stay here. It's a beautiful place to live, work, and raise a family. And we would love to have you as long as you want to stay.
Thank you. Thank you. My wife is already planning the trip.
Don't forget the creeper trail. So the other item, Ms. Chair, that I would mention is I was on a call with the National Governors Association 2 weeks ago, and the topic of the call was state level opioid settlement distributions and the highest best use of the fund and the models that are being used, which it appears each state is following a slightly different approach, but it was shared with the attendees of that meeting that only 4 states have distributed any money from their statewide abatement entity. And so as soon as we can get these funds transferred to Washington County, we will be the 5th state to get money out the door. And so I thought that would be, that'll be good context. We're hoping to do the transfer of funds within the next several days. Obviously, we just started our partnership with DBHDS, and that is the entity that will manage the fund transfer. And so we're trying to pull all the right levers over there to get that done as quickly as possible.
Madam Chair and Tony, let me ask a question. So the grants committee has made the recommendation. Does the full authority now have to vote on that, or does the grants committee have authority to push that out?
So I'll give you my answer, and then if James wants to correct me, he can. The bylaws state that when committees do work, that the full board then has to come back behind the committee and give an approval. In this case, the committee approved a process. And then the full board approved the committee's recommendation to follow the process. And that process says that the committee can approve awards, but only the full board can hear appeals and denials and that sort of thing. And so June 9th, we've had to schedule this carefully to fit in the current fiscal year. June 9th is the opportunity for this committee to consider approvals in a block format. You can pull a project out if you don't want to provide approval to it, but then the final denials would be made by the full board when they meet on June 23rd. And so that process was developed as a way of providing some reasonable ability to conduct business without the need to pull the full board together, 10 times a year. James, am I good with the council on that answer?
Yes, sir. He hit the nail on the head, Mr. Chairman.
So, thank you.
Anything else?
I had a thought about the listening session. So this is logistics, not grant committee business, but if all of the folks who are currently here in this Zoom room are interested in attending the listening session, we would need to have them log in to the Zoom account for that, if that is what these folks are wanting to do.
So obviously it's the pleasure of members of the board. If you'd like to make a change, we have not advertised the listening sessions as being virtual. And the reason for that is because we were trying to encourage people to come forward and to speak their mind, and felt that having it broadcast over the internet might be perceived by some folks as maybe not something that they would want to do, which is why we did one session that was all virtual and the others have been only in person.
I was thinking about your board members.
So she makes a good point. If any members of the board would like to be able to listen in to the listening session and maybe comment to people in the room without us providing broader access to the general public, then that is something that we can do. And we'll just leave this link open.
I think they have to switch over to yours though, right?
You're just saying to switch over to new boards.
You would need to end this one and then start a new one. It could be with your account.
What we'll do is we'll send out an email to the board as soon as we conclude this call with the information on a link. If you have time, if you're able to attend the listening session, it starts at 2:00. It goes from 2 to 3:30.
Okay, everybody, thanks so much for your work. Do I hear an emotion to adjourn?
So
We got multiple seconds.
This is
Thank you
Jim.
so much.
Just
Thanks,
before we
Jim.
adjourn, Madam
Oh.
Chair,
Yes,
this is
please,
Jim
go ahead.
Holland. Just before we adjourn, I just want to, I'm not fully informed, but I want to make sure that we are moving forward. If the committee or the board has to meet, that we have a process, Mr. Chairman, whereby we can expedite, especially at this critical juncture, as we have just one application and others potentially by June 9th. If there's some way we can meet and review data a few days before, I think that would be so important, especially early on as we look at granting awards. If there's a process we can improve on, I certainly would be in favor of that at this juncture.
So if the Madam Chair, if there's a desire by the committee to do this, the staff can set up an all virtual session that we would not make any votes of any business. And that would be an opportunity for the staff to simply review with you all of the compiled information and recommendations several days ahead of time, so that you can see that, you can ask questions. We can even make it open to the general public if people want to hear what those conversations sound like. We just won't be able to transact any official business, but we'd be happy to set that up. The only challenge that we have right now on telling you exactly when we can do that is that the application period closes on May 5th. That gives our team 1 month to do the full review before we present it back to the committee. So while I'm comfortable saying that we can have something to you a week ahead of time, there might be a few remaining details that aren't entirely ready until the public meeting occurs on June 9th. But I would imagine we could probably cover vast majority of the information with you a week ahead of time.
Jim, are you thinking you need more information than like was provided today for the
No.
summary for that?
No, just back, it would be nice to have information, background, such as the program, because I'm not knowledgeable of it, but I'm just trying to expedite the process for approval. That's all. For moving the money out is my goal.
Okay,
Thank you.
you guys want to just review the feasibility of doing that and then get back to us with a date and see if we can make that work?
Happy to do that.
First time it goes
Absolutely.
through, it probably would be really helpful.
We can also provide the information in a written format with summaries that we send out to the members of the committee.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you.
for that idea. Okay, I think we are to the point of being ready to adjourn. Everyone in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll send an email out if you want to join us for the listening session.